All right, we are live and on the air. Welcome to Geek Chats, as I've branded it now, with Jon Del Arroz. That's me. I'm the writer of Star Realms Rescue Run, the first novelization in the Star Realms game universe. And I'm with Todd McCaffrey, New York Times bestselling author. Worked on the Dragons of Writer's Pern, Needle Introduction. He's got a book out through Wordfire Press. This is the advanced review copy. Actually extends out in the regular version, and it's backwards on your screen probably, but it's called City of Angels. I love it. This is one of my favorite books of all time, for real. And yeah, Todd, you can talk more.
So City of Angels is kind of a response to The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, where Robert Heinlein came up with an artificial intelligence and then had it magically disappear at the end of the book. This is an artificial intelligence that decides she's the embodiment of Los Angeles. And the story gets kind of weird from there on out. It's written more as a mainstream science thriller than as science fiction, so it reads slightly different. But it's a really cool book.
I loved what you did conceptually with artificial intelligence. I won't spoil too much of the book, but I really liked, if you look at early science fiction and how they handled artificial intelligence, they'd be confined to a spot. And there wasn't an internet per se where something could just spread out, be in multiple computers. I loved how your character ended up in nanobots, sort of split herself off into the city grid, sort of split herself off into, various different directions. And I think that's what we can expect from an AI in our super hyper connected world. Is that something that was in your thoughts when creating this?
Yeah, I think also that one of my biggest concerns was that I didn't believe you're going to get an artificial intelligence that was just going to turn on and be deep thought. I thought it would take some programming, it would take some maturation. Anybody who has kids know that kids go through a whole programming process,
Right.
and so I kind of wanted to build that in there.
Yeah, you do go through that. And I was just reading an article on Forbes today. Incidentally, that Forbes ran an article on artificial intelligence today because IBM ran a seminar on Watson, which is kind of like your Siri or your Alexa for Amazon or whatnot, but it's more of a business tool that it is supposed to learn. So if somebody has sent a typo in before, it figures out that it's a typo on a word and or pronounced wrong, and eventually will change so it can provide you customer service. So they're actually going to have artificial intelligence running our customer service soon enough. But that learning seems to be a very crucial element to AI development in the real world right now.
Yeah, it's not really though. There's two types of artificial intelligence we're now identifying. We talk about a limited capability artificial intelligence, a guided missile that can change targets, Watson, stuff like that. And what we would have called AI as kids has now become a AGI, which is an artificial general intelligence. Something smart enough that when you talk to it, it can sit there and say, "How about them Mets?" And "Oh my God, the Cubbies won the World Series! Isn't that a blast?" And they wouldn't get lost. They'd know that the Cubbies meant the Chicago Cubs and stuff like that. So something you could talk to like a regular person. We've got the Amazon Alexa or Amazon Echo here in our house, and it's quite interesting to see where it can be both sophisticated and incredibly dumb at the same time. It has no inference capabilities, so
That's
you
interesting.
can
That
ask it
must be
how.
something. You've worked in programming now. That an inference capability must be something really difficult to develop, which is why we haven't seen anything good on that result, right?
There's a whole bunch more we're learning about how the human brain works, and that's going to roll back over into artificial intelligence software. We're beginning to learn that the brain itself has cascading flows. So it's sort of like a number of neurons say, "Gee, this is a great idea," and then all of a sudden, all the neurons are going, "Yep, it's a good idea." And that's about when we say, "Ah, I'll have tacos for lunch." Um, and so that's really what's going on in the world, and it's going to be a while yet before we get something that you and I would be incapable of distinguishing from regular human being.
Did you follow the attempt on Twitter last year to have an AI kind of learn and infer stuff, and then it became a nasty troll that just said horrible things to people
Oh, you
because
mean
of yeah.
You mean the first incarnation of Donald Trump? I don't know. Um, I mean, clearly they worked out the bugs now.
Nice.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, the problem was again that people knew how to game the system, so that would be another indication of an AI. You couldn't really turn an AI into something that terrible. But then again, you get the question of, so why does an AI need a moral system? And that ends up going back to philosophy and why do human beings need a moral system?
Right. I followed it on Twitter for the day it was up before it got shut down. I mean, it literally took a day for Twitter
Wow.
trolls to start making it say about the most horrible things you can and you're right. People do try to game the system in these situations. So you almost have to have it in its learning phase contained to a certain degree in order to develop that moral compass. I would imagine, if we're talking hypothetical in the future, trying to create one of these.
Well, I mean, you're talking about the same thing with kids nowadays. We call it parents, and you see that in City of Angels. Um, we know with real human beings that if you don't give them affection and touch when they're young, you'll get this failure to thrive thing where they'll just die from want of love, really, or touching. Um, and I suspect, that will probably be the same case in AIs. It's not impossible to make a horrible human being. It's probably quite the same, just as easy to make a horrible AI. And, so that is also one of the little things that's touched on in City of Angels.
Yeah. I just had mine go crazy from a virus and start singing, which I think is a, real possibility that there can be just too much input or too weird of an input that it won't understand it, especially in the early generations. And we'll find, these attempts just kind of going off the rails. Now, hopefully it doesn't get into some of our weird systems like nuclear codes and things like that when that happens.
Again, you're going back into this election, John. It's far too easy to sit there and make comments about not having certain people have control of nuclear codes, just for that very reason. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, for all we know, it may have happened already. Let's postulate that AIs
right.
need as much care and feeding as human beings in order to survive. So it could have been that an AI came into existence and committed suicide, failure to thrive. Nobody would have known.
Interesting.
How would you?
True.
You just sit there and say, "Well, what?"
Do you follow?
Huh?
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
Okay. Do you follow the about the singularity and all that and this? I mean, in City of Angels, you kind of get there with your main character, which is an artificial intelligence, to where it starts to change the world because of this development, because of this spark. And people do think that either we're going to merge with machines or we're going to have some event that's going to change humanity, or maybe perhaps an artificial intelligence will do that, and that's called the singularity theory. Talked about a lot on the internet. Is that something you follow at all? Is that something you're interested in?
Yeah, I followed it a lot. Ray Kurzweil produced a book a while back called The Age of Spiritual Machines, and part of City of Angels was based, certainly with that in mind. But as for the singularity, you and I am actually physically holding the singularity in the form of this little cell phone. We have huge. This is a tricorder. This is even better than a tricorder when you get down to it. This thing has so much capability in it that it's insane, and we don't understand how insane it is. There's a, if you're not running Apple, like smart people, and you're running an Android, then you have a Linux operating system with a whole bunch of other stuff underneath it, and a really powerful computer with a great processor. You've got something you couldn't have bought in a luggable way back when they were 50 pounds, and we called them we didn't call them laptops, but we called them portable computers. You got more capability here than you had possible then. I mean, you look back, and 20 years ago, we didn't have digital cameras at all. And we've got that incorporated in as an afterthought. So we're already in the singularity, and that's part of the reason we're actually suffering from this political upheaval we're seeing in our country today and around the world. Brexit is another great example of people sort of going, "Oh my God, stuff is getting to be too much. We're scared."
Well, I'm very offended because I'm on an Apple right now, and smart people obviously use Apples. Um, but
Well, as
yeah,
I
I don't know.
said,
I don't know. I don't know if I
you
define
kind
that
of knew
as
we're not an Apple, John. But if you've actually ever tried to do anything with the internals of an Apple, you would rapidly switch to Android. Um, because Apple's iOS is a nightmare and their programming language is a nightmare. Sorry, ex-programmer here. Well, actually, no apologies made. The boys at Apple should learn.
But
Unfortunately,
I still think, in following those circles and listening to the chatter there, I mean, yes, you can say that the world's definitely changed because of the device in our hands and all that. But really, when they're talking the singularity, they're talking an even bigger event, where you're toying with the limits of human physicality. You're toying with moving consciousness so that we don't have to die. Things like that, which seem a lot bigger in the long run than being able to have a ton of processing power and use it to post dumb memes on Twitter.
yeah, every time we get the possibility for major disruptive change, you get two groups. You get the group of people who say, it's terrible, the world is going to end. And you get the other group of people who sit there and go, oh, they're going to be friends with us and they love us and we're just not going to understand and we're all going to be protected. And it's all a bunch of waffle. The singularity is here. We're seeing it. We're seeing a huge change in communications. We're seeing all sorts of inventions. I mean, to the point where it has become almost impossible for one person to keep up. We are using assistants to help us. We're moving into the realm of the third brain, like Siri and Alexa and all this other stuff, and Google's got its own thing. We are changing. We're shortly going to have driverless cars. And that's going to completely disrupt things. The truckers are the first people that are going to go nuts. I mean, they lose their job.
Right.
That's
going to be the big deal. Is we're all going to be losing jobs here, even in the service sector.
Yep.
And there's nothing we can do about it. It's bizarre, and I don't have a good solution for that.
I think that the first thing that we need to do is stop looking at it as a problem and start making it turn into a huge boon. When you look through the history of mankind, all of the inventions that we ever had came from the people who were in a position where they didn't have to worry about food or shelter or other things and were encouraged to do higher learning. We're now beginning to move to a position where we can sit back and think and do more stuff than we've ever been able to do before, and we're all sitting there saying, darn, I can't drive my truck across the country, or gee, I actually, no longer have to drive a car. Rather than being engaged in looking at what this future can be for us, we're spending far too much time bemoaning the fact that we're going to lose the comfortable past we never really had anyway.
But it can have adverse effects too. I mean, I've got a story that I've got on my hard drive, which is about half done, and where people have sort of lost their capacity to use long-term memory. I mean, I can't even remember what we talked about on Thursday when we were preparing for this. And I'm sure it's only going to get worse for the next generation. I mean, yes, we have these assistants that can now take care of that for us, but what does that do to us? And what, that has obvious implications on our consciences, right?
Yeah, definitely. We're rewiring. If you look back, somebody, I think it might have been John Calvin, but there was one scientist who was looking at brain development, how we learn to read and everything. And the thesis was that the part of our brain that is used for reading and understanding literature used to be the part of our brain that we had dedicated to tracking spoor in animals so we could eat.
Interesting.
So we rewired that section. We rewire at a massive and fantastically amazing rate. Ray Kurzweil, again, the guy who talks about AI, suggested something quite interesting. He says, we're the only species, and I think he's a little bit wrong, but we're the only species that really gets music and makes art. Now, I would argue that there are a whole bunch of ravens and other singing birds that would probably call him daft in this, but there's a certain sense to it. His point, though, was, okay, it's art for us now. What's art going to be like for an artificial intelligence? What's going to turn them on? What's going to look good? We have the same problem with television. If you look at your television, you and I see moving images. Dogs and cats don't, because their ability to process images is a lot faster than ours. If we speeded up our televisions, and for that matter, some of them are moving fast enough, there may be some dogs and cats that actually see the same moving images we do. Now, you got a computer that's 1,000 times faster than us, and it's so bored by that same image that's been on the screen for a 60th of a second, you know? It's for a computer, a 60th of a second is like, woo, an hour or two for us. So how's it going to enjoy that? That's an issue that I also bring up. It's sort of peripherally in the next book that's coming out of mine called The Jupiter Game, where I talk about aliens and how fast their brains work, which isn't the same thing. The speed of a brain isn't the same thing as to say the capability of a brain. It just means that it can process faster. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's bigger or that it records better or that it has more inference engines built into it or other things like that.
Right.
Me personally, I'm waiting for the implantable eidetic chip and a couple of other things. I mean, I'm all for extending our extension and our capability extension that we've done ever since we started to, ever since we grabbed the horse and said, giddy up.
Yeah, I definitely would be on the same page. Again, it's because my long-term memory, frankly, sucks, and I would like to fix that. It'd be better.
Well,
so you
on
mentioned
the
the
other
Jupiter game. I think we're pretty good into the topic now, but it'd be interesting to talk about your future books. You've got one finished, about to come out. What's the story with the Jupiter game?
Jupiter Game's in with Wordfire Press, who also published City of Angels, and it's somewhere in the production cycle. I don't quite know where. But the Jupiter Game it's kind of based on the notion, aliens have been watching us for a long time. They've been stealing our best ideas, or what they think are our best ideas, and selling them illegally to the rest of the universe. And they're afraid they're going to get caught. So they want to try and do one final scam to have us sell them, basically our version of Manhattan Island for their version of 24 glass beads, or $24 worth of glass beads, rather.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun, and I think, didn't you get to read an early copy of it?
Yeah, I did. I'm just playing the interviewer right now. I loved it.
All right, I'm pointing out that you probably might have some experience. I don't think it's all that much different from the version you read. And I had a lot of fun with it, and I'm sort of looking forward to the reaction. The cool thing about that is it opens up a universe that's so big. If it succeeds, because you can never tell with a book, I'll write a sequel, and hopefully after that I'll start opening it up for other people to play in, because it's a fun universe. So
that's awesome. Everybody watches this. Check it out when it comes out. The Jupiter Game from Wordfire Press, and
Yep.
Todd McCaffrey. It's going to be his next thing. All right, is this our scoop? Am I like a media news announcement here? Wow.
I don't think it's a scoop. It's been announced in Locus magazine a long time back now.
Oh, man.
But now you have to tell me, when is your book coming out now?
My book is coming out.
Tell us about yours.
In 10 days. My book is Star Realms Rescue Run. It's based on the app/deck building game called Star Realms. It's a very simple game. It's just spaceships in battle stations. And I just took a classic space opera science fiction approach to it, where I wanted to humanize it in the vein of some people you might know and like. I kind of added a silly romance story on top of it and set it in space. Some people who are watching this might like that sort of thing. And it's about a gal
opera.
Space opera? Yeah.
Yeah. Mil SF.
I like space opera better. Because I figure if it's not directly about the military, I guess it is about the military in this one. But if I'm not engaged in a unit going to war and doing military, I'm hesitant to call it Mil SF. I call it space opera.
Okay.
Which is, that's splitting thin hairs. But it's about a gal who, with her AI, is thieving out in the galaxy and is approached by her government to rescue a military mind of unparalleled from her opposition, and then hijinks ensue from there. It's very fun. 10 days, it'll be out.
Cool.
I'll link it. Cool.
Okay, good. Who's your publisher?
Evil Girlfriend Media. They're a small group out of Washington. Editor is Jennifer Brozek. She was up for a Hugo 2 years ago now. She's worked with Bain.
Yep.
She's a phenomenal person. Love her.
Yeah. And let's see, it's Katie Cord is the president of the company, right?
Katie Cord, my hero and a half. And I actually found her just through the internet. I was just searching publishers and all that, and they were coming out with these really cool little short story anthologies that were themed. One was like a vampire one was a zombie one, and they were really cute. And Shannon Page, have you met her? She edited those.
No, I don't think I remember her.
Yeah, she's a good editor too. I'm big on them. I'm also big on WordFire. WordFire is picking up everybody. Just in the publishing world, everybody cool just seems to be signing. Yeah.
But speaking of Katie, of course, I'm in one of her anthologies as well. I'm in the Women in Practical Armor anthology that they did a Kickstarter on just recently.
Right, so I've got that.
You and I are with the publisher. Woo-hoo.
Hey, cool. Go team.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
So what else do we got here? So what have you been up to these days? Because you've actually been pretty quiet on the publishing front since City of Angels. And that came out, and it's been re-released, I guess, more recently. But I know Jupiter Games been in the works for a long time. But you're focusing on some other artistic endeavors. Is this true?
Yeah. I've been accepted into a Master of Fine Arts program, and I'm busy making all sorts of strange art. It's kind of, if you're going to write, you're going to find yourself moving into artistic endeavors, and I kind of wanted to fill out some of the spaces. So I'm having a blast. I am exhausted because this Friday I took down 4 different installations. And strangely enough, I'm discovering that I'm not quite as spry as I used to be.
Well, thank you for joining us anyway. That's really...
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
So, yes, so if I look a little bit like I'm about to fall over and collapse, it's only because I'm about to fall over and collapse. Don't worry.
No, it's much appreciated that you spend your time on a Saturday night with me on the internet.
I'm like I don't like spending time with you every time. I mean, come on. We back days. And how many years has it been now?
2012. I actually blogged about it the other day because I went back and I was just looking for pictures of us, and the first one I found actually was on your blog from WonderCon 2012. I think that's where we first met in person.
Was it? Yeah, it was WonderCon, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
I was at Worldcon 2006, but I was a kid then, and I probably walked past you, didn't know who you were, and likewise. So.
Yeah, probably. Yes, this happens.
Yeah.
Oh, well, cool.
So we've got a few obligatory questions that were sent your way. I'm sorry to send these your way. I'm sure you get them everywhere you go. One, Dragon Riders of Pern movie. Do you know anything about it?
Yes, I know as much as everybody else who does a search with their favorite internet browser for Dragon Riders of Pern movie will discover, and absolutely nothing more. Such is the nature of the business.
Are you going to be revisiting or looking at Pern in the near future, later future, anything like that?
Well, I have. That's an interesting question. And the short answer is my sister's working on Pern right now, and I'm going to leave her some space in which for her to recover her or discover her voice and things like that. And I've always had lots of other story ideas that I've been working on, as you probably have noticed, like City of Angels, the Jupiter game, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, personally, I mean, I'm a big fan of Todd's Dragon Riders of Pern stuff. I started reading those when I was a kid. I would say, yeah, I mean, I got Dragon's Kin when it first came out, and Dragon's Fire is really that's one of my top 3 or 4 favorite Pern books. So you did a killer job on that. But when I read City of Angels, I mean, there's a passion in that book that is beyond what he was writing. It's so good, guys. I really highly recommend you check that out. Todd's been very kind in this, and he actually gave me a couple copies of the advanced reader copy right here. There's a book that'll change your life. I have a spare one, and I will give this out. I have permission to give this out and send it to somebody who's watching. Send it to somebody who is here or whatnot. If you leave a YouTube comment, don't do it in the chat box or anything like that. I don't know, really have a great way to contact you at that point. Maybe message me on my blog with your email and all that, and I'll keep everything private. And I know there's some international people here. I'm okay with shipping it internationally. I really think somebody should read this book, and especially somebody who is interested in reading Todd's work and loves Todd. I'll bite that bullet and send that out to you. So leave me a comment on my blog. I'll get this out to you. Todd, is there anything else you want to talk about? That's pretty good?
Actually, you reminded me of something. So I don't know if you've met him yet, but there's a really cool person that hangs out with the Baines Bar and other people. He has the nickname of Speaker with Rats, as in Speaker of the Dead and things like that. And he's also called Speaker. He also happens to work in neuroscience, and he's one of the people that's working in the DARPA Brain project on what is it? I'll probably misstate this, but something like computer brain interface stuff, actually wiring hardcore into the brain and all. I gave him a copy of City of Angels with much diffidence and shyness because he seemed like a cool guy, and I said, I hope you like it. And he sent me this amazing email from, I think it was Dulles Airport. That was the day when all the computers went down. And so he had nothing to do, and he read it in one blast, and he thoroughly loved it. And I was like so thrilled because you always want to know when people like your book, and you've done a lot of hard work to get that thing out there. And to have somebody like Speaker tell me he liked it, it was like it made my whole week. And now I'm bringing it up again. So if Speaker likes it, I'm pretty sure you guys will like it too. And of course, John likes it, which is probably even more important.
So you're breaking up a little bit, but yeah, that's really cool. I know that feeling a lot.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Moon was nice enough to read my book and said some really nice things, and I nearly fell over and fainted. So
hey, that is awesome. She's a great person, and her opinion is really important. So I'm glad you got a blurb from Elizabeth. Cool.
Yeah, thanks. Cool. Yeah, with that, I think we exhausted our topic.
Hang on.
I think we've exhausted our Todd. What's that?
No. What are you working on?
What am I working on? I'm starting, I just am doing my National Novel Writing Month sprint, and I started on a sort of conceptual, with the election in mind, I thought, well, with everybody in government so invested in themselves and so invested in power, what would be the one thing somebody in government or in a high position of power would never do, in your opinion?
Let's see. Well, they would run a reality show casting people as apprentices. Oh, no. I guess that's been done. They would...
No. Way better. They would never just willingly step down over a conscience, a crisis of conscience. And that's where I wanted to start my book.
Okay, that's going to be interesting. I mean, I'm not sure that I agree with you. I think that Richard Nixon tried to classify his resignation as a crisis of conscience, but
he tried to.
I did say try to. Politicians.
An earnest, honest politician, and that's where we're going. That's where I'm starting my book in space, and cool. I'm going to have them develop from there, and about 8,000 words into it. It's been pretty fun so far. I also started with one of my other characters, and it is a botanist who's just got a master's in botany and is really into flowers. And I'm doing a lot of YouTube research, and it's not a topic I'm interested in, so it's very, very, very hard to write.
Well, what you probably want to do is put some posts out there on your blog and try and find yourself a willing botanist slave to give you all the really cool dirt, if you'll pardon the pun, on the topic.
Yeah, I got a buddy doing that for me too, of course. So
okay, cool.
Yeah, how about you? Are you so you've got Jupiter Game in? Is there anything cool we might want to hear about?
Not right now. I've got a couple of things that are in process, but I don't want to talk about them until they're done, and I don't want to step on anybody else's announcement toes. If you're desperate to read more of me, if you haven't picked up the anthology, The Galactic Games from Baen yet, you're missing my short story there. And aside from that, I've got a number of things I'm kind of noodling about in my brain, but nothing that I can announce right now.
Cool. All right,
Yep.
everybody. I hope you enjoyed our Geek Chat. What do you think of my brand, Geekchats? Is that pretty cool? I want to do this regularly. I don't know. I think it's pretty interesting thing.
Well, if you're going to do it, then I'm not sure about Geek Chats, and you ought to get down for LostCon, so that you can interview a whole bunch of people and have more input.
That would be way fun. But
yeah.
Thanksgiving weekend and kids. You'll be at LostCon. Todd McCaffrey will be at LostCon. That's a good announcement. So if you're in Los Angeles area over Thanksgiving weekend, they do have a science fiction con. It's supposed to be fantastic, and he will be there. I will be at the White Wizard Games Fair, promoting Star Realms Rescue Run the weekend before Thanksgiving, and that's going to be in Boston. You can look up the Wizard Games Fair. So,
all righty, that's
all right.
it.
Thanks for joining us. I know you're really tired, and it's much appreciated. Have a good night.
Okay, you too. Take care.
Cheers.
All righty. Bye-bye.